A freight train, full of many different goods and people, pierces through railroad tracks in the western desert under a pure sun, nor warm nor cold. In the next shot, we see the same freight train crossing our screen from left to right. When it disappears, it reveals that we are at the exact place of a perfectly perpendicular crossroads between these railroad tracks and another road which seems to continue endlessly in the horizon. We are shown that a city is built right before the crossroads, a fictional town called Asteroid City, which gives its name to the eponymous Wes Anderson movie. That place, first described by the playwright Conrad Erb as being the main scenery of a fictional play called Asteroid City, is far from arbitrary. What it tells us immediately is that the fictional place that gives its name to the movie is a place of crossroads. In other terms, it means that the movie will take place where we are literally stopped in our travels, in our movements, so that we can take the time to live on another mode than on constant departure, as we humans always are. In a way, we could say that this movie is the exact opposite of a road movie. It tells the exact opposite story than what Jack Kerouac told us in his infamous On the Road, in which the real experiences of life always take place on the move, anywhere but where we are right now. On the other end of the spectrum, Asteroid City depicts the crucial moment when the individual, any individual, has no road left to discover, has nowhere to go, which forces him to stop for a while, at the same time forces him to understand the extent to which his own life is always itself at a crossroads. Which begs the question, at a crossroads between what and what? As a general rule of thumb that will be justified all throughout these videos, we can say that the movie Asteroid City shows us that we are always at a crossroads between our idiosyncrasy, which means our individual hopes, dreams, emotions, thoughts and wounds, all of which try to exteriorize themselves and manifest themselves in the world, and our shared experiences of space and time, in the context of which all our lives move in the world, the only common world we know, to our great distress, and all of that at the same pace. But if we take into consideration the complex narrative structure of Wes Anderson's movie, why would a TV broadcast host judge it so important and even crucial to show us this entirely fictional story of the creation, then attempt to stage and then perform a fictional play written by a just as fictional playwright named Conrad Erb? Furthermore, why is it so important that the stage of the play, which for the viewer identifies with the content of the screen we are watching, has to be constructed in this particular manner, as the playwright describes with great lengths at the beginning of the movie? If, as some have suggested, the quarantine imposed on the characters of the movie is to be interpreted as a reference to the situation we have known during the world pandemic of COVID-19, can it be taken seriously when we know that the TV broadcast is supposed to be shot and broadcasted in the 1950s? And if the movie is actually about COVID-19 and its consequences on our contemporary human condition, then why does Wes Anderson ends up making a movie about an alien coming to Earth to steal a 5,000-year-old asteroid? What does the alien mean? Is it really a metaphor, as the actor who plays the alien in the play says or tells us? And if it's actually the case, then the metaphor of what? Moreover, the narrative structure of the movie led a lot of viewers thinking that it was fundamentally a movie about meta-fiction. More precisely, some say it is a movie that is supposed to be a way for Wes Anderson to interpret his own career as a filmmaker as he stages a complex mise en abîme of his own process of creation, production, directing and performing of a movie. If it is the case, then we should logically find in this movie some sort of theory of cinema and its artistic possibilities, one that should give us viewers clues about the prospective and retrospective takes that Wes Anderson drew on his own filmography. But is it really the case? We can agree that Asteroid City is indeed a movie that says very important things about the reasons why we tell each other stories in many forms. More specifically, I think that what Wes Anderson is most interested in this movie is the way we embody and personify others instead of our own selves, and the profound philosophical reasons why we do that. In other words, why does the humanity in its vast diversity has felt it was so important to wear masks, to play other people in various performances? In philosophical terms, this movie poses the question of the reasons why we as humans have been fascinated by the powers of persona, of representation, of images of others that we could embody for a while to better understand ourselves. If we think about the meta elements of this movie, we have to admit that the question of cinema in particular is very rarely mentioned, except through the character of Mitch Campbell, as far as she is rehearsing lines for a role that she will have to play in a future movie. It could have very well been a role for a play. The reference to cinema here is not meaningful. If we watch and understand the movie as it is, we see that drama, as part of theatrical performance, is at the core of the movie, and not cinema and filmmaking. I think this should be some sort of warning for us. We tend to, as an interpretative reflex, always see the complex narrative structure of films as an instrument for the filmmaker to interrogate his own artistic medium, even though it is not necessarily the case. As a matter of fact, as we allow ourselves to step away from these interpretative reflexes that lead us to interpret everything as a meta-cinema or as meta-literature and so on and so forth, I think it gives us the ability to see the movie as it really is shown to us, through what the movie says and what it means in the experience we have of the screening. Every outside information that is not specifically relevant to interpret this movie in particular should then be regarded as a potential scarecrow that might, if we are not careful, draw us away from the point of the movie. Hence why I will try to propose a sort of immanent critique of the movie for itself and by its own means of expression. Since it's a huge task and I am so far so unthorough to say what I have to say about Asteroid City, it may take me 2 or maybe 3 videos of analysis and interpretation. Moreover, it's a task that I intend to see through for many other movies, TV shows, and various works of art on this brand new YouTube channel. So feel free to subscribe if you think I'm doing a good job so far. I'd like to hear all your thoughts about the movie in the comments down below. Now let's get back to Asteroid City. Let's start by trying to produce a full description, or at least as precise as necessary for the means of this video, of the narrative structure of the film. Indeed, the narrative structure of Asteroid City takes precedence over the dramatic content of the play itself, as it is what determines the way this Asteroid City play is to appear on the screen of the viewers. And depending on the level of the so-called narrative structure we are in, this play will take different values for different characters. Let's be more schematic. The Asteroid City play can be perceived as a pure fiction created for the needs of a fictional TV broadcast, as a work in progress or to be written play in the scenes with the playmaker, as a real play that will soon be played by tangible actors in the scenes with the fictional actors, as a play to stage in the scenes with the director played by Adrian Brody, and as a play effectively played or at least played as a general rehearsal in the main scenes of the movie. With that in mind, we can then consider in a schematic manner that we have 3 main narrative levels that could all be then respectively complexified, of course. These narrative levels are in order or hierarchized, which means that the lower level is always dependent on the upper level, the latter being the condition of possibility of the former. Each level of narration can also be considered as a level of reality inside of the world of Asteroid City as a whole, as a movie. So first, we have the TV broadcast led by Bryan Cranston's hosts, which is the reason why all the rest, the playmaker, the play itself, the actors and so on and so forth, is invented. Of course, the TV broadcast is itself a fiction inside an external reality that has to be presupposed, but that is never part of the movie. In the absence of this level of reality in the movie, we have to consider that it doesn't exist, or that it exists only as a useless background that has to be there. But that is irrelevant to understand the stakes of the story. With that in mind, it means that the TV broadcast is the higher level of narration in which all the others are grounded. Then we have everything that concerns, which I propose to gather under the idea of the process of the play's production, with first the writing and production of the play, and on the other hand the staging of the play. The most important part of this level of narration is what I propose to call actorialization, that is to say the process in which the actors try to make the roles their own. I might talk about the performance of the play in general to refer to the activity of the director and the embodiment of the characters of the play by actors in a theatrical performance. At this level of narration, we shouldn't forget that the actors, called like that because they have been chosen to play a specific role in a play called Asteroid City, are actors themselves in the external reality, this presupposed external reality of the world we are presented, as they have been chosen by the TV channel, Channel 8, to play these roles. 3. The play as it is performed or rehearsed at least, as it is shown to the viewer, and in which all the actors of level 2 play their respective roles. These are, to put it simply, all the scenes in color of the movie. On the contrary, the black and white scenes are either set in the level 1 or in the level 2, because, as we will see, we have to consider that the reality of level 1 will continuously merge with the reality of level 2, through the character of the host, who plays the function of a junction point between the two levels of narration. Indeed, it's only when he inadvertently shows up in the level 3 reality that we are told that something is wrong. Quote, "I am not supposed to be here, am I?" says the host when he is spotted in a scene of the play. By the way, it is through scenes like that we envision that we are only in a rehearsal of the play and not in an official performance of the play in front of an audience. The end of the movie makes it very clear that such a performance before an audience is never to occur, since the play was cancelled due to the premature death of the playwright Conrad Herp in a car accident. More on that later. For the purpose of this interpretation, we have to add another level of reality, which is originally a subproduct of the events of the play itself, in which Mitch Campbell, the star actress, rehearses for a role she got in an incoming movie. So now that we have in our possession a rather objective description of the narrative structure of the movie, we have to answer this simple question. Why did Wes Anderson choose to orchestrate a narration of this sort, which makes every scene of the movie feel like a meta-commentary on the movie? One simple way to finding an answer to this question consists in understanding that a structure so rigid can only have an interest in a contemporary film if at one point the rigidity and order between the different levels of reality is subverted in some way. Then it's in the precise way these structures are subverted that we will be able to understand why the director felt the need to tell the story he envisioned in such way from the get-go. On this matter, it's very clear that Wes Anderson's interest lies in the way some levels of reality contaminate each other. Sometimes it's an upper level of reality that contaminates a lower level of reality. Sometimes it's the other way around, which is always more surprising. There is something postmodern in this way of treating the narrative structure of the film, but also something that one may call meta-modern. Postmodern because the movie is portrayed in a way that we have the impression of witnessing some sort of arbitrary equalization or leveling out of the different types of discourse, as if lines of a movie rehearsed by a character from a fictional play that was itself invented by a fictional playwright, created for the sole purposes of a fictional TV broadcast, should have the same impact in our lives in terms of intensity, of importance, of significance and of effectivity than the background reality that is never shown in the movie. But we are also on the verge of what some commentators called meta-modernism, or sometimes post-postmodernism, in the sense that the leveling out of the different types of discourse is not determined by a general negation of their respective capability of saying something of significance, of greater importance for our individual lives. On the contrary, it's more like the deeper we get inside the narrative structure, the deeper we dive into layers of mediations and discourses, the more we could effectively return to the immediate significance of our existences. Of course, one cannot settle on Wes Anderson being more postmodern or metamodern, or the other way around, because those types of meta-concepts are always too broad, or too general to fully grasp the singularity of a work of art. To take a significant example of a contamination of the levels of reality in this movie, let's think about what the movie wants us to think, as it is implicitly suggested that the death of the playwright Conrad Earp in a tragic car accident could have something to do with the events of the play he himself wrote. Do we have to imagine that he died in one of the high-speed car chase that we witnessed twice in the film, at the beginning and at the end, when the quarantine is not forbidding the passage of cars? Or maybe the movie just wants us to think that his car just stopped obeying him because one of the weird car parts thought it was high time to claim its autonomy, just like it happened for the Steinbeck family in one of the first scenes of the movie. We are led to think that Conrad Earp died because he sort of dove into his own play, because it has been prepared since we saw him make out with the actor that was supposed to play Augie Steinbeck, after he saw him embody perfectly, as he says, the character, as if the playwright had had the need to lose himself in his own creation. As Walter Benjamin puts it, he immerses himself in it. He enters the work, as legend tells us happened to a Chinese painter on once catching sight of his finished painting. In other words, we are led to think that in this world exists an interpenetration of the lower levels of the narration into the higher levels, especially between the levels 2 and 4. It's what we'll see more clearly with the characters of Augie and Mitch Campbell. The former, as a character in the Asteroid city play, ends up being deeply transformed due to his acting contact with the character he briefly embodies every time he helps Midge rehearse for the role that she got in her next movie. But the reason it happens is because it is already the case for Midge herself in a very explicit way. When she talks about herself to Augie after one of their rehearsals, she tells him that she's pretty sure that she will one day be found dead in her bathtub due to a pill overdose. But later in the movie, we realize that it's in reality the ultimate incident that marks the ambiguous end of the character she's bound to play in the movie. Moreover, the actor who plays Augie is the character who, inside the movie as a whole, keeps transgressing the frontiers between the different narrative levels, even though he has been intimate both emotionally and sexually with the playwright. One may believe that he knows and understands the deepest meaning of the play, but the paradox is that he is the one that will lose touch with the meaning of the play the more. At the beginning, we're under the impression that the actor succeeds in his acting so brilliantly that it's more Augie as a character in the play that is transformed by the fact that the cognitive confusion of the actor who plays the role regarding the meaning of the play ends up contaminating Augie himself as a character. For example, the end of the movie makes it very clear that Augie as a character in the original play as written by the playwright, as we can imagine it at least, was supposed to know about the quarantine being lifted off, but because the actor in the meantime was having a conversation with the director, then with the actress who was supposed to play his late wife in the play, he comes back in the play as if he had slept the whole night. An understudy had his hand bandaged instead of him and learned about the quarantine being lifted off. The character should have known about it, but the play seems to be transformed by the way the actors know or don't know about what is going on and the meaning of it all. In the end, it's the reality of Third Degree, the one created by the play, being performed by the actors, that ends up winning over the reality of Level 2. Because the movie as a whole wants us to consider that what is willingly happening in the Asteroid City play is truer, more liberating, and more important for the actors as their lives as actors. The intention of all of this is to make us think about the way a completely fictional and most of all ludicrous play can say more things about the actor than his own life outside of the play. But if we take Augie's question seriously, then what is the meaning of all this? I think that Wes Anderson wants to show us visually, through variations of masks, persona, and performance by actors, that what we can call the human condition, whether it is historical or ontological, has something to do with the sphere of representation, with the human activity consisting in reseeding our existential and ethical problems in layers of mediations to find a point of view from which we can better apprehend them. The underlying condition of this situation is that the immediate access to oneself and to others through communication or introspection is tendentially failing. What Wes Anderson is telling us is that it's always through the representation of something like a work of art, especially because it allows us to embody a persona, a mask, someone else's mask, that we can hope to know ourselves better. Deep down, it's a solution to a radical problem of self-knowledge, of knowledge about others and of the world. To put it in the American philosopher Stanley Cavell's words, we can say that in very general philosophical terms, Asteroid City's theme, like a lot of other modern and contemporary works of art, is the skeptical doubt about the possibility of knowing the world, by extension of knowing and understanding others, and by extension of knowing and understanding oneself. These three dimensions of the skeptical doubt being inextricably connected in our ordinary experience of the world and of our psychology. The alien is literally, etymologically, the other. Alienus in Latin means which belongs to someone else and is derived from alius, other. One of the ways to interpret Anderson's recourse to the arrival of an alien is by considering that it is telling us that it's always when we try to scrutinize the other that we are that we're able to understand each other and ourselves. It's basically what we do every time we go to the movies or to the theater. In this way, it's true to think that Anderson uses his film, and maybe all of his films, to convey a practical theory about the importance of art, as the best way of representing oneself as someone else and someone else as oneself, if we bear to understand our shared human condition. The actors in the movie feel the need to present themselves as others so they can fully grasp who they are, what they are. It's why Asteroid City is probably Wes Anderson's movie to give us so explicitly and in plain sight what Stanley Cavell calls views on skepticism. Film is a moving image of skepticism. Not only is there a reasonable possibility, it is a fact that here our normal senses are satisfied of reality, while reality does not exist, even alarmingly because it does not exist, because viewing it is all it takes. So, if you like this general interpretation of Wes Anderson's Asteroid City, let me know in the comments what you think about the movie, if you think my interpretation has valid points. And feel free to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the other videos that are in preparation for this movie and for other movies and TV shows. This was just part 1 of a probably 3-part series of videos about Asteroid City.